But this year, the PEN World Voices Festival, of course, of international literature focuses specifically on women's and LGBTQ rights, here and around the world. Just a few of the names on the schedule: Laurie Anderson, Rita Mae Brown, Teju Cole, Colum McCann, Salman Rushdie, and Patti Smith.
Nice.
It's a lot of heavy hitters.
Yeah, I love it. The chair of the festival's curatorial committee, as well as the editor and co-founder of the literary magazine Tin House, is Rob Spillman, and he joins us now. Rob, welcome to BK Live. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
We're also happy to have Honor Moore, a poet and memoirist who also teaches at the New School Graduate Writing Program. Nice to meet you, Honor. Thank you very much,
Nice to be here.
both of you, for being here. Rob, why don't we start with you? Why a festival? In other words, how is this festival greater and different from others?
Well, New York is the most diverse city on the planet, and having an international festival of literature just makes sense to be here. But it started 13 years ago by Salman Rushdie, sort of in the aftermath of 9/11, and he was really worried about the creeping nationalism and isolationism around the world, and thought that we really needed to come together. And now, obviously, that sense of urgency has come back with a vengeance.
Yeah. Honor, how are you involved in this year's festivals? What's been your history with the festival?
My history with the festival was that I was on the board when the festival started, and since then, at least in my mind, I've been advocating for a festival based around gender and power, because I've always been very interested in gender and power, both in my writing and in the writing of others. And this year I'm involved with co-editing with Alex Kate Shulman a volume for the Library of America called Writing the Women's Movement, in which we're collecting all the documents going back to the feminine mystique. So going back to the early 60s and coming up into the 80s at least. And it's interesting, we thought we knew when second wave feminism ended, but actually the truth is once you look into history, it starts to form itself and inform you. So that's a bit of what we're talking about on the panel. I've always been concerned at the contemporary distortions, both in the press and among my sisters and brothers, about what early feminism was and what contemporary feminism is and what its roots were. So that's what this panel is about, and that's why we chose the word militants.
So Rob, looking at that and seeing the way that you guys are really drilling down on these issues and their intersectionality, what are, first among equals, what are the panels that we really have to see to get the full grasp of those two topics?
Well, there's so many. There's 70 events over the course of 7 days.
Got an entire catalog.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on. But there's everything from Masha Gessen is going to be in conversation with Samantha Bee, Chimamanda Adichie with Trevor Noah.
You guys always do these great mashups of these people from worlds coming together.
But we're using the whole city as a canvas, too. So we're doing something out at the BAD, the Bronx Academy. So there's going to be a queer underground panel out there with Marlon James and a bunch of other people. So
what's happening in Brooklyn?
In Brooklyn, we have several events going on. One right here at St. Joseph's on satire versus the state. So it's going to be with, again, Masha Gessen and Sasha Hemon and a bunch of international writers who've had experience fighting, authoritarianism abroad.
Honor, you want to tell us more about your panel?
Yes, it's going to be at a place called Roulette, which is a Brooklyn event, a place where I've never been.
It's right on Atlantic Avenue.
Great. And we're Alex Kate Shulman and I, and Margot Jefferson, the memoirist, journalist, Pulitzer Prize-winning critic, and co-founder, we learned, of the National Black Feminist Organization in the 1970s, are going to be in conversation with Anna Holmes, the founder of Jezebel, about a about second wave feminism. You know, trying to bring into the present conversation some of the ideas which we had right at the beginning, which actually are still very live ideas, like race and gender and power.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think people should know about second wave feminism that they may not.
Well, one of the things they should know is that when it started in the sort of mid-'60s, there were already two strands. There was NOW, the National Organization for Women, started by Betty Friedan and other sort of middle-class women who had been profoundly affected by reading The Feminine Mystique. And then there was a group called New York Radical Women, which started, and such organizations all over the country, which started in about 1965, 66, 67 in there, who came out of actually the liberation movements, came out of the left, came out of the civil rights movement. So already you had these two strands. Sometimes they overlapped, but I think what happened is that, for instance, second wave feminism is accused of being racist. In fact, it was mixed race from the very beginning. It's accused of having been homophobic. In fact, radical feminism was you know, inclusive from the beginning, except that trans didn't exist as a movement yet. So we're going to bring some of those ideas and facts, true facts as opposed to fake facts, into the present moment.
It's fascinating to me.
I had a question for Rob. Off camera, I was kind of asking you guys about audiobooks and how the advent of that technology affected. But we're also looking at bringing code writers and people who make video games into the fold of literary festivals. So what's the thinking behind that?
Well, I think writing is writing, you know, and trying to break down barriers is part of the festival as well. So we have comedy writers and we have theater people, and you know, trying to bring them all in, because I think one of the main goals of the festival is to showcase the power of story across borders. And I think, you know, amazing storytelling is going on with videos, with movies, with theater, you know, with blogs. I mean, there are just a lot of different ways to tell a story these days. And, you know, I think power and resistance is coming from all sorts of unlikely places. We have Lauren Duca from Teen Vogue is going to be part of a couple of different events. And
Teen Vogue has been killing it.
Teen
They've
Vogue,
been
you
writing
know,
scathing pieces.
like
Brian loves Teen Vogue.
It's
I
true.
do
They've
too.
been
I
killing
mean,
it.
yeah, and she
Yeah.
won a Shorty Award yesterday. I mean,
Yeah.
she's
So
you
it's
know.
not just going to be all the stuff that you were meant to have read in college.
No.
There's going to be a wide variety of things
Absolutely.
at all levels.
Well,
Absolutely.
you already
Very
read
cool.
that stuff in college.
That's true.
Well, I
I
mean,
did.
what can you tell us about how to get down to the festival and see some of these events? Where do people find tickets? I don't think you're going to have trouble selling tickets to a lot of these awesome events, but
Yeah.
where do
Well,
people get involved?
Go to penn.org, and everything is listed online, and so you can click through. And a lot of the events are free, so you just RSVP to them, because some of them are, you know, there are a lot of RSVPs, so, you know, first come, first serve. But there's a whole mix of free and paid events.
Okay, before we get out of here, Honor, you're the instructor, you're the teacher. What do I need to know before coming? Give me a crib sheet, just so I don't come in like an idiot.
First, you have to know that you're not an idiot.
Okay. Number one.
Second, you have to know that if you read, you are not only invited, but included in the world of this event. So it's not only, and at this particular moment, you know, anybody who's concerned about truth versus the fake needs to understand about literature, needs to understand about art, needs to understand that art has a kind of breadth that perhaps news doesn't. And that in order to stay alive as a culture, we have to read and we have to come together. And in order to stay alive as a society, we can't forget art, because art can be resistance, is resistance, when other aspects of life can't be.
I love that. Let's
love
continue to cross-pollinate. You know, we got a town hall coming up Friday.
Yeah.
The people, the press, and the president. So there are a lot of some of those ideas that'll be interwoven. But thank you both for being here.
Thank you,
Thanks
Rob
for
Spillman,
having us.
Honor Moore. Thank you.